Hello, greetings friends, and welcome to the enemy logic tutorial. In this video friends, I'm going to show you how to create a really good enemy that has a whole bunch of super useful logic. So for example, this enemy can do a patrol around an area, as you can see over here. If you run past the enemy,
What was that?
they will hear you and they will look for you. If they see you, they'll start to run at you and attack you. Even if you run away, they're still going to keep coming for you. They'll keep trying to hurt you and so on and so forth. And also, if you sort of run past them and they don't see you,
Must have been nothing.
they will continue on their patrol. Not only that, but you can attack them.
Oof. Oof.
And once you take them out, they will randomly drop an item that can, for example, give you experience or give you money or give you, ammo, whatever it might be. Furthermore, the patrol works in such a way that it's super easily customizable. All you have to do is move these particular points wherever you'd like to move them. You can move them all over the place. And because we've incorporated scope into this, friends, you can have multiple characters and they will always move to their own points. Even if, for example, they overlapped with another person's points and it would make sense for them to go to like a closer one, they will only ever move to their own patrol points and they'll never overlap with another character's one. You can attack multiple enemies at once. Yeah,
Enemy. Oof. I never saw friends. Oof.
And they, as you can see, they drop sort of random. Last time they dropped a blue item, a blue experience orb. This time they dropped a red one. And so yes, friends, that's all there is to it. Let's get stuck into this video. A whoop whoop. So part 1 is going to be getting our enemy character to patrol a certain area. So I'm going to make it so that they go to this point over here, then they're going to go over here, then there, and then they're going to sort of loop, and they're going to do their little patrol. So what we're going to do first is, after we've got our character, we're going to create a little object, and this is going to be like the waypoints that our character moves to in their sort of little patrol. So you can make it any sort of shape. Yeehaw! You can do really anything. This shape is going to be invisible, but it's just creating like a bit of a shape so you can use it as kind of like an anchoring point for our logic. Okay, sweet. So now that we've got a little shape there, I'm going to attach a tag, L1 and X, and then once we've done that, I'm going to name this tag A. And I'm also going to move the sort of point that we've got here. As you can see, the gizmo, the little white piece over here. I'm going to hold my cube and then press triangle so it's kind of aligned to the grid. Then I'm going to grab this gizmo and align it with triangle as well. So you press R2, hold it with R2, and then you press triangle to align it. And then I'm going to put it kind of just, sort of centrally above the object. You can make it here or you can make it wherever. So that's looking pretty cool. Then I'm going to copy it and make 2 copies so that we have 3 in total. I'm going to make the second one B, and I'm going to make the third one C. And then if for just added clarity you can change the color of these. So what you can do is you can go tools, spray paint. You can make the first one red, you can make the second one blue, and you can make the third one yellow. Oh, sorry, not a great yellow there. Yellow. Okay, sweet. So now we have our point A, B, and C. And I'm going to kind of, first we're going to select all 3 of these, select them with X, and then we're going to group them together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them so that they're kind of in line with our little character over here. I'm going to move A to this point. I'm going to move B to this point. And I'm going to move C to this point. Okay, sweet friends. So now I've got my 3 points that I want to go to. And now I want my character to actually go to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to press X on our little collection of cubes, our little patrol points, and then we're going to press X on our character as well, and we're going to group these together. Now what happens is when our character is going to be moving towards these points, what we want to do is kind of crazy. And you're going to say, Mealad, what's going on, mate? And I'm going to say, trust me, my dudes. Rather than putting this logic in their puppet logic, which is the piece of logic that we've got here, we're actually going to put it in a microchip and then surface snap it onto the puppet. So the way that we're going to get our character to actually move to these points is we're going to go into our character's logic, then we're going to put down a new microchip. Yeah. Then inside this microchip, we're going to put down a follower. So we're going to move as an output, and then off to a follower. I'm going to put it down. Then L1 and square on the follower. We can reduce the move speed to something like 2 meters per second. We don't have to worry about the strength and dampening for now. We'll sort of adjust those as we see fit. We're going to go enter tag and we're going to go to A. So now my character is sort of, you can see there's a bit of movement, but it looks like strength isn't high enough. So we just have to slightly make strength a bit higher so that our character moves to that point. We can also increase the damping. So at the moment you can see our character is doing like a little bit of a float maneuver. The reason that they do that is just because of the position of the gizmo over here. So what we might want to do is put on a grid snap and just move that slightly higher. So now our character will move towards that point. And when they sort of get to that point, you'll see they'll kind of just stop when they're within that region. If you have like strength at 100%, or if you increase the speed a bit, it can sometimes, it can be a little bit crazy, a little bit abrupt. So I would say kind of just have it at a fairly low speed, I would say, so that the character's doing a bit of like a patrol walk rather than a patrol sprint. So that's looking cool. Then what we're going to do is basically develop the system that makes it go from one point to the next. So we're going to go into logic and processing and get ourselves a selector, this chap over here, and the A port is going to power this follower. So basically, to start off with, we're going to be moving towards point A. I'm going to quickly rename this microchip patrol logic. Lovely stuff. So I'm sure you can figure out what's going on. After we move to a particular point, we want to then go to the next one. So the way we'll do that is with we'll go into sensors and input and get ourselves the trigger zone. And then the trigger zone is going to detect a tag. It's going to detect A, and we're going to reduce the size of this tag quite considerably. And if we put it, we might want to make it like a bit of a square. That should be alright. Once we do that and we get to a certain point, you can sort of align it to our character's position with triangle, then you're going to move to the next port. So when you find A, it'll take us to B. What's going to be happening in B? Well, we're going to copy this follower, and this follower is going to be moving not to point A but to point B. Then we can copy this trigger zone, and this trigger zone will be looking for point B. So when we find point B, it's going to take us to C. So we'll quickly go to the selector, increase the number of ports by 1. Yeehaw! And now this chap is going to be over here. So as we can see over here, we just copied this follower. We're going to change this one to C, and that's looking pretty cool. And then we'll have one last trigger zone, and this trigger zone is going to detect point C, and when we get to point C, it's going to take us back to A. So what's happening here, friends? First of all, we're moving towards point A. When we find point A, we're going to move towards point B. When we find point B, we're going to move towards point C. When we find point C, we're going to move towards point A. So let's see if it works. We're moving, we're moving, we're moving, we're moving. So here we have a very simple patrol, friends. Of course, it's a tiny distance. And one thing that you'll of course notice is that our character is just looking straight ahead, which is not the most legit. So what we're going to do for that is just add a whoop. We're going to add, well, there's two things you can do. One of the things is to add a rocket rotator, which is pretty useful. It makes your character move in the direction, or sorry, look in the direction that they're moving. So what you can do is you'll just sit that inside, put that down inside. You'll take this arrow, which is the rocket rotator's arrow, and you'll just point it directly forwards. You'll go rotation strength 100% and overall damping 100%. And now as your character moves, they will look in the direction that they are moving. Another thing that you can do is add in look at rotators, and they will look at the particular tags or whatever it is, for example. But I find the rocket rotator just a lot simpler because you don't have to like power a separate one for each new point that they're going to. Okay friends, so this is looking pretty sweet, and what's cool about this system as we've developed it at the moment, you can sort of, if I just put on the grid snap quickly, you can move, sorry, the position of your patrol area and make it like a whole crazy shape. Yeah. Woo! And the character will of course follow it, you know, wherever you make it. And of course you can also add additional patrol points. So all you would have to do is add in more little blockies like this with a different tag name, and then add in more trigger zones and more followers, and you can pretty much have you know, X amount of positions that they go to, really just any amount. So the next thing I want to show you, friends, I'm just going to move these points back to where they were, is how to make this patrol route specific to each character, so that you can actually copy and paste a character without having to create a whole unique patrol route for them. So what I mean by this is, at the moment, if I copy this character, right, and I say I want my character here to go on his own route, that's perfectly fine. So they'll go on their own route, that's looking cool, but as you can see, at this point, the character gets to B and he checks, okay, I'm going to look for point C, but this one is actually closer than his one over here, so he's going to go to a different point entirely, which isn't what we want. And it'll also be a problem if, for example, you move the character like over here, for example. If you wanted to have like overlapping patrol routes, then the character here, they're just going to go to the nearest one, and their whole route is just totally messed up. This guy's actually going to get sort of stuck into this new custom route that we've made, which isn't what we want, friends. What we want is a system that has scope. And as we went over in my fairly recent update tutorial, scope is basically a great system that allows you to sort of localize logic to a specific group. And this group is going to be our character. And then once we do that, we're actually going to be able to do all sorts of crazy things and have a great time. So what we're going to do in order to make our character's patrol route specific to that particular character is the following. Okay, friends. Are you ready? We're going to grab our patrol logic with R2, then we're going to scope into our character so that we are in the same zone as the cubes and the character, and we're going to actually surface snap it onto our character themselves. So now, check it out. If we press L1 and circle, we have the whole group. Yeehaw! If we press L1 and X, we are now inside that group, so we're on the character and we are on the cubes. And then if we pressed L1 and X again, that would take us to our normal puppet logic. So basically we've gone out one layer of the sort of scope or of the group, so that this microchip and these cubes are in the same group. So that's a little bit funky, but if I had to do it again from the top, if we do it completely from the top, so I'm going to close everything and do it again, because this is an important step, but it's a little bit of an obscure one. So we've got our group of everything. I'm going to go L1 and X, and then L1 and X again on our character. Then into our character, we're going to grab our patrol logic, L1 and circle, so that we're now in the puppet group that is sort of mixed with the puppet and the cubes. You can see if you go over it, there's a bit of an outline on them. You can see here, and an outline on this chap. But we're not at the level where you can open the sort of logic by itself. And then you're going to snap it down with L1 and let go of R2. So that is a little bit funky, friends, but this is the way. Now we're going to go into the follower, L1 and square, and the scope by default is everywhere. And this is cool, but the problem with everywhere means they're going to look for any A tag, and we want them not to look for any A tag. We want them to look for the A tag that is specific to their particular position, their particular group, so that you can have overlapping routes, but the overlapping paths, you know what I mean? But characters aren't going to be sort of walking into each other and overlapping and bunching up, that sort of a thing. So we're going to go scope on all three of these followers, and we're going to say here. Now, friends, we're going to have to do a little bit of tweaking, because now that we've moved the microchip from outside of the puppet logic to just directly on the puppet's body, the trigger zones and stuff are going to be, they're going to be all over the show. So we're going to put on a little grid snap, and we're just going to sort of realign them. It's looking pretty cool. We're going to have to do it with all three of them. You're going to say, mean lad, bruv, why didn't we do this from the beginning? Well, I sort of thought about that, friends, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do it from the beginning where we attach it to the body. But I wanted to go over these things in a logical order so that you know what you're doing first. Because if I was like, okay, guys, you know, multiple layers of characters blah, 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 first off, then I think it would be a little bit intimidating. But we're doing it step by step, taking it nice and slow so that we can get it sorted. So let's align it to the grid again, and I think the position that we had it was kind of hereabouts. The follower's position. Because as you can see, whoa, it's all the way out on the body, which is not what we want. So I'm going to move it here. I think that's the position. Sort of by their heart, sort of a thing. And then the last one over here. I think, there we go. So now, hopefully, it's going to work. When I press play with R3, they move to that point, move to that point, and they move to that point. Now, friends, you're going to look at me and you're going to be like, mean lad, bro, it seems to me like you just did a whole lot of nothing. Well, friends, I can understand why you'd say that, but I will let the results speak for themselves. So before, if our characters had like an overlapping point, they would go to the closest one. They would take the path of least resistance, as it were. But now check this out. So there's no doubt in anyone's mind that this point over here, which is point A, as you can see, it's got an A tag in it, is closer to this character than this one. But because the follower is going to only follow the tags that are within their group, it's not going to care about this one. Behold. Hee hee ha ha. Hee hee ha ha. So there you go, friends. This is how you get a patrol route. Sorry. What the? What? I see the problem now. I see the problem now. So, what I forgot to talk about was the trigger zones. So the followers are working perfectly. They're moving towards the right point. But these damned trigger zones are detecting things that are outside of the scope. So all you have to do is go to these trigger zones and make them here as well. So then you won't have that problem. So let's do a quick check. Cha-cha-cha. This is why we test things, friends. So now, once again, the character moves. And even if they detect an A tag, well, it's not the one in their group, so they don't care about it. Fabulous, hey, friends? That is how you do the patrol, and also make a patrol that can overlap with other ones. Woo-woo! Next up, friends, we're going to start working on player detection. So, first of all, we've got our little enemy over here, and I'm going to put in a new character who's going to be the player. So I'm just going to get a blank basic puppet, and just stick him in the scene. I'm also just going to differentiate between the two by making this one sort of green. Green for the goodie. And then I'm going to go to our guy and I'm going to make him red. Just make sure that when you change the color that you scope in. Otherwise, so if you just do it straight, you'll change the color of all the boxes as well. As you can see, they've all gone red. So just press L1 and X first, and then you can change the color of your enemy. Okay, sweet friends. So I'm going to go to this chap over here, and I'm going to put in some tags. So I'm going to put in a tag which is in sensors and input. I'm going to go just put it down inside, and I'm going to say player. So we've got a player tag, right? That's cool. Then I'm going to make another tag, and it's going to be called noise. And the noise tag is going to be powered by the left stick. So basically, if you're standing still, you're not making a noise, but as soon as you press the left analog in any way, it's going to then power the noise tag, and then it'll be able to be detected. So in terms of detecting this chap, I'm also going to go L1 in square and go onto his labels and make him a friend. Yes. Then friends, I've actually done this already, but go into your little character and go L1 in square on the controller sensor and say possession mode none, because you don't want to be able to possess the enemy. The enemy is like an AI, you know what I mean? You're going to be possessing your hero over here. So if I just go into the game quickly, I can possess my hero. This guy's going to be doing his patrol, but at the moment he doesn't really care about me. Nothing's happening there at the moment. So I actually put down the camera. That was for the gift that I made the other day. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is basically add a detection logic or some detection logic to our enemy. So the two types of detection are being able to hear the player and being able to see the player. So let's do being able to see the player first. I'm going to go into logic and processing, and I'm going to get us a new microchip, so we've got everything sort of centralized. Then I'm going to go to sensors and input, and I'm going to grab us a laser scope. Now the laser scope is going to have a range of, we could make it pretty long, something like 6 meters. That's how far you'll be able to see the player. But as you can see at the moment, it's pointing sort of in the wrong direction. So what we'll do is we'll go guides, grid snap, we'll pick it up, align it to the grid, and then we'll point it forwards so that the arrow, as you can see here, the arrow is pointing forwards. Now it's also going to go labels, and it's going to detect not all of these chaps, but just friend. And furthermore, when it detects a friend, so here we have like all these various things, when it hits something, in other words, when it hits something, then it's going to take us to the next step. So how we create like a bit of like a tiered alert system is, we're going to use a selector. Cha-cha-ching. So basically, when we have our sort of like first section, in other words, when A is powered, nothing is happening. But when we sort of see something, in other words, when we have detected the player, cha-cha-ching, if the player is within 6 meters and he's sort of directly in front of you, it's going to take us to input B. Now when input B is powered, it's going to kind of activate a bit of a timeline, and this timeline is going to be a little animation of our character going like, oh! So for example, I might just do a little bit of like a surprise. Whoopsie, I'll turn off the grid snap so I can animate a bit better. I want an X. I'll do a bit of like a surprise thing where they go, whoa! Actually, I can put on a puppet mirror so that I get the arms nice and... Yeah. So I just did that with a keyframe. Then I'm going to add a blank keyframe on the left, a blank keyframe on the right, so that we have a nice transition. We might move them a little bit closer together. Reduce the size of the old timeline with X. And now they'll go, oh! So that's their little surprise animation. Then what we're going to do is go into movers and output and get ourselves a text displayer. Now I'm going to type in this text displayer just an exclamation, which is the kind of, you know, we maybe change the font so it's a bit sort of thicker. That's pretty cool. Turn off the text box, turn off the border, turn off the shadow, make it a bit larger, make the color red, and then what we're going to do is go in scene. So we're going to go text display settings and make it in scene. This makes it sort of in the physical scene itself. You're also going to go face camera, and then we're going to change the position of this chap. You might actually want to use a grid snap for this, because moving around text displays that are in scene can be a little bit janky. I just want to look at it from sort of multiple angles. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Oh, so there we are. They've got a bit of an alert situation going on there. So basically, if they see you, it's going to take us to B. We're also going to connect it so that A powers the laser scope. So basically, the laser scope sees you, it takes you to B, and then when it's at B, the laser scope is no longer powered. So the reason we do that is because we want to have multiple sort of tiers to this alert system. So stage 1 is you can see the enemy. Stage 2 is, okay, we've seen the enemy, so we're going to do a little alert. Let's just say like alert animation. So this is the alert animation. And then we're going to have the next stage, which is basically looking at the character. So we're going to go and grab ourselves a look at rotator. And we're going to put this in output C. And we're going to say, okay, rotation strength 100%, damping 100%. We can maybe, you know, sort of tweak with these as we see fit. And then for your look at rotator, make sure that the arrow is pointing directly forwards. It's good to use a grid snap for this. And then look for tag. We're going to look for player. So now we are looking for the player, and it's going to sort of rotate and so on quite strongly. So when the alert animation ends, it's going to take us to port C. So what's happening at the moment? Stage 1 is looking for enemy. If you see the enemy, in other words, someone with the friend tag, the friend label, it's going to take us to our alert animation. When the alert animation is completed, it's going to take us to C, the third stage of our alert, which is now looking at the player. So let's give it a look to see if it works. So what happened was, they actually saw us, and now they're kind of looking at us. The problem is, we didn't actually stop their patrol logic. So what we must do for this is, go into our alert animation, put down a new keyframe, and this keyframe is going to actually turn off their patrol logic microchip altogether. So we can make it long, so it's the whole time. And we're going to rename it to no patrol. Gotta name those keyframes. And then we'll copy this keyframe also and put it in our stage C. So when the enemy spots the hero, the player, they're gonna be surprised and they're gonna stop. And now if I move, they're watching me because they've got me in their sights and they're like, what's going on? So now they are watching me. And in the next section we're going to be going on to like actually chasing and attacking the player. But this is just what we're doing for now, because now that we've done the sight detection, so I'm going to go detection, just name this microchip. So we've done sight, this is like our sight line. Now we're going to do hearing detection. So even if the enemy doesn't see you, if you run behind them, they'll sort of be like, huh? They'll have a bit of a question mark situation. So this one doesn't require a selector or anything super hectic. What we're going to do is we're going to go into sensors and input, and we're going to go trigger zone. Then inside of our trigger zone, we're going to actually make it a pretty big trigger zone, because think of this as like the sort of hearing radius of the enemy. Maybe that's too big. It really depends on your own game. Then we're going to go things to detect, and we're going to go tag, and then we're going to go over here. We're going to go down to noise. So it's going to detect noise. Remember the noise tag we put in here. It's just a regular tag, but we connected it to the left analog stick. So if they walk past us and we aren't moving, they won't be able to hear us. But if they walk past us and we are making a noise, in other words, we are moving, then they're going to hear us. And what happens when they hear us? Well, we're going to copy the alert animation timeline. We're going to power it with the old trigger zone. And then we're going to go inside and we're going to change the text displayer so that it is, instead of an exclamation, it's a question mark. We're also going to change the color of it so that it's sort of yellow. So they are surprised. We're going to make this timeline a bit longer now, friends. And make sure that for the entire duration of the timeline, we're going to have, we're going to have this no patrol. So you're not going to keep walking while they're sort of confused and they've just heard something. Now what we're going to do is throw in some rotators. So basically what's going to happen is they're going to be like, what was that noise? And then they're going to turn around using a rotator. Let's see, we can just use a basic rotator, which is the sort of cube here with a little squiggly arrow around it. Let's turn off the grid snap as well quickly, even though actually timelines have different grid snaps now, which is great. Okay, sweet. So if I just sort of delete this and I just have it running, he's going to go surprise. Then he's going to, oh whoops, I should actually power this rotator, shouldn't I? Oh, and I should align the right axis. So at the moment when you put the rotator on, it's sort of spinning forward, which isn't what we want. We want it to be going, oops, we want it to be going upwards, but also make sure you've got a grid snap on so that it's aligned perfectly. Okay, sweet. So let's give a quick try. We sort of do a bit of a spin. We'll maybe make it a little bit stronger. He does a bit of a spin. And that was actually, the detection logic was actually working, because while he was spinning, he actually saw the player, which is what we want to do ultimately. But for now, I'm just going to move the player aside. So now, okay, he spins a little bit too much. So we're going to reduce the length of this as well a little bit, because you want it to basically, so he turns all the way around. So he goes surprise, turn around. Once again, a little bit too much, so let's make it slightly shorter. Okay, that's pretty good. We could always just like reduce the degrees here as well. Just make it like 170 or something like that. Okay, that looks pretty cool. So he pretty much turns around, and then he'll sort of chill there for a second. And then we're going to do something that has, we're going to basically copy that rotator again. So he says, he turns around, he looks, he turns around again, and then he'll continue with his patrol. We might do like a little bit of a pause, so it's like, turn around, nothing there. Let's turn around again, and then he continues with his patrol. So with this one, we basically built in the sort of, the like questioning sort of, what's this? I think this is not alert, but sort of caution. The sort of, they've like heard something and they have a bit of a look around. Now the way that we've done this, because we've got our laser scope working, the laser scope is basically going to be like, okay sweet, so when I see the player, then it is going to actually trigger our alert and then our watch sort of situation. So let me sort of put this into practice. So our character's doing their patrol, I walk past them, oops, my bad. I must also make the old, for now, let's make the playback mode of the caution animation once. Because otherwise, if I'm not in the ring anymore, in the zone of detection, it won't turn around. So he's questioning, he turns around, he turns, he sees me. But now, as you can see, it's beginning a little bit of a story. It's sort of going question mark and alert and all these sorts of things. So basically what's going to happen is, we're also going to make it so that when the enemy detects the player, they're not only going to have no patrol, they're also going to have no caution. So we don't want them to be seeing us and then being like, oh, but I hear them as well, because that's not very useful. So we're going to put down a keyframe. And this is going to be the no caution keyframe. And basically what we're going to do is basically just deactivate this, this trigger zone. We'll power it here, and we'll call it no caution. Oops, sorry. That's the whole microchip. So we'll say no caution. Because there's no need for us to go to the caution stage. It's kind of like less alerted than the actual alert stage. Also, because this is just a simple connection, it's just a trigger zone to the caution animation, it's a little bit simple, and it's also can be sort of like if you run out and then back in, it'll sort of restart the keyframe. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a little counter. We're going to connect the trigger zone, so it's going to be plus. Then we're going to say when the counter is full, we're going to activate the caution animation. And remember, we made it playback mode set to once, but now we're going to change it back to sustain. So the playback mode once is like if you've got a simple system, but now we're trying to make a system that kind of can work with being able to see the player as well. So trigger zone, it detects the player. It will increase the count by 1. The count will be when it's increased by 1, it'll play the caution animation. They're sort of looking around, so on and so forth, doing that thing. And then when the caution animation is finished, it is going to reset the count. So now, let's give it a try. He's running. I'm going to run past him, and then I'm going to run away. So he looks for me. He continues his patrol. I can run past him again, or I should be able to. Doesn't seem to want to. He doesn't seem to want to hear me again. Okay, friends, so I found the error of my ways. Basically, because it's sustained, it wasn't working properly because it was... So it was triggering it, the count was filling up again, but because it's sustained, it was basically just staying at the end of the timeline. So now what we'll do to actually fix that is go restart timeline. So when it detects us, it's going to increase the counter by 1, and it's going to play the timeline from the beginning. Because it was working, it was saying, okay, sweet, it reset the countdown, the counter is full, but this was already at the end of it, so it didn't actually sort of play it again. But now, as we can detect, we can run past them. Huh? They're confused. They have a bit of a look. They don't see us. They continue with their patrol, and we can run past them again. Huh? And if we are sort of close enough, huh? We can turn around. Wah! And they see us, and then they start looking at us. They're not too sure what to do. That's looking pretty cool. One thing we're also going to do now is, with our no caution keyframe, which you'll remember, we're actually going to de-animate the no noise thing, and we're going to de-animate or sort of depower the counter. So now, even if you're in the middle of the caution animation and you spot someone, it's going to stop that animation because it's no longer getting power. Okay, sweet. So let's just do a bit of a test. We might need to put another one of these in the alert keyframe, but let's sort of just check it out. Huh? Whoa. So he spots us. As you can see, what was happening there was he was alerted, but he still kept spinning because in the alert animation timeline there isn't a no caution keyframe. So let's put in a no caution, and what this does is, friends, it basically stops the caution animation. So the caution animation is basically you're surprised, you're looking for the enemy, or the enemy is looking for the player, they spot them, and once they've spotted them, it triggers the alert animation. So they're no longer cautious, they're no longer saying what's going on, they're now saying, huh, I've just spotted an enemy. So that's what's happening over there. Okay, sweet, let's do a bit of a test. We question, we turn around, they see us. And now if we move around, they're going to keep looking at us. So we have just fixed and waxed player detection. Part 3 is chase and attack player. So in this section, we're going to go to logic and processing, get ourselves a new microchip. And this is going to be our pursue and attack microchip. So I'm just going to rename it quickly, pursue plus attack. Lovely stuff. I'll also give it a bit of a red tint and a nice skull so we know that it means business. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a follower from the movers and output. It's a little ghost running after the person. We're familiar with the follower by now. And we're going to say, okay, cool, strength is 100, damping is 100, speed is pretty low. Let's make speed something like 2 seconds. We may need to adjust the sort of position of this gizmo, but for now we'll leave it there. And the tag we're going to follow is player. So now it's not connected to anything. Let's just see what it looks like. So they're going to be sort of moving. It's a little bit slow. The damping is maybe a little bit too powerful. So let's increase the speed and see what's up. So you can see they're going after the player. That's a little bit fast. Oh, also, you could see that they were going, whee! Their body starts to freak out because on the player themselves, the player tag by default is at the same position where the microchip is, which is kind of on the floor. So let's basically make it so that this is in line with their kind of torso. But also we're going to go on to our our follower, and we're also going to set the min distance, friends. The min distance, or the minimum distance, is basically so that the enemy will approach the player, but they're not going to like get too close into their personal space. They kind of just get within attack range. So as you increase minimum distance, you're going to see a sort of small sphere erupting from this kind of a region. You can also adjust the position of it. So that's maybe a little bit big. Let's make it 0.5 for starters. So if we test it out, they're going to move towards the player. Okay, it's maybe not big enough. So let's make it 1 meter. So basically it's going to be, they sort of stay 1 meter away. At the moment, the enemy is still sort of off the ground a bit. So let's just change the position of this. So it's a little bit higher. Okay, cool. So I'm changing the position of the gizmo. As you sort of change the position of the gizmo, it kind of will be floating off the ground less, you know. So he goes towards the player, and now he's nice and on the floor. So as you can see, he's close to the player, but he's not like, you know, walking into him and sort of being all weird and stuff and sort of flipping out. So that's cool. I would say a 1 meter minimum distance is cool. Depending on your game, you could make it longer depending on the size of your enemies and so on and so forth. Okay, sweet. So basically, we have our detection logic. When all this stuff happens, the character is then going to start pursuing the player. And of course, it's going to do attacking. So when the player is within a certain range, we're going to start doing our attack. The way that we're going to go about doing that is, we'll go sensors and input, grab a trigger zone. Now, when we'll first change the position of this chap. Okay, cool. Sort of with the chest. So when the tag is detected, what tag are we looking at? We're looking at the player tag. When the player tag is detected, in other words, if the player is within this range, it's then going to start doing his cool attacks. Keep in mind, friends, that the size of your sort of attack range, this is what this trigger zone is, this is your attack range. Make sure that it's larger than the minimum distance of your follower. Because, of course, if the follower is 1 meter or whatever it is, the minimum distance is that, and you're too far away, then it's going to, of course, not be able to actually detect that you're there. So we might make it ever so slightly bigger, something like 2.5. So if we go L1 and square, we can see the inner circle is the minimum distance, and the outer circle is the attack range. Okay, sweet. So if the player is in the attack range, something's going to happen. So we're going to go logic and processing, grab ourselves a counter, put that down there, add 1. Then what we're going to do is add a timeline, and when the timeline, or when the counter is full, it's going to power the timeline. It's also going to restart the timeline, as we learned from our previous thing, and then when the timeline ends on end trigger, it's going to reset the count. So L1 and square, on end trigger, reset the counter. Okay, sweet. So then, what we're going to have now is basically our attack animation. Our attack animation. I'm not sure what my face did at that point. Okay, and you can have fun here, friends. You can be like, waha! So this chap is gonna, whoopsie. Hurrah! Ooh, I've still got puppet mirror on from earlier. He's gonna go. We'll give him a nice punch. You know what I mean? It's actually a better idea, friends, to animate from like the shoulder. I find it's a little bit, the animations are sometimes a bit smoother. I know that there's different names for these different kinds of animations, but I forgot what they're called. But you'll just have to trust me. So he goes, hurrah. So the enemy is gonna go in for his attack. And now he's gonna go, yeah. Because as you can see, when you animate from the shoulder, you can move the body and the whole thing sort of moves with it. The arm moves with it. Whereas if you animate from the hand and you move the body, this hand stays in place. So there's different uses for these things, you know. One's not necessarily better than the other. Just different uses. I still want to make an animations tip video, you know. Okay, animation tips, I should say. Sweet. Enough mumbling. So as we've done there, just a little bit of like a take this. Yeah. and then they'll sort of, we can actually just add a default keyframe so that they kind of return to their resting position, whatever that might be. So they go here. They start to attack the player. They do like a nice punch. We're also going to, of course, do a little bit of damage dealing. So we're going to go cool, cool, cool. We'll go into our, this is move as an output. We'll look at the health modifier, which is the heart with all the gears. And now we're going to say at this point, so when the punch has been sort of thrown, douche. So at this point where the punch is getting thrown, it's going to deal, let's say, minus 20 HP. It's going to do it in a zone. So we're not looking at impact at the moment, but rather in a zone. And it's going to, in terms of the scope, this is very important, you make it not here. Now you can make it so that it's, that it only affects friends, for example. But for now we're just going to say scope not here. So basically it deals damage to anyone that isn't in this character's group, which is cool. But you can also make it friends as well if you want to be extra sure. The scope feature just makes it a bit simpler. Okay, sweet. So it's going to deal 20 damage per hit in a zone, which is, you generally want to put the zone sort of around where the punch is, or where it's sort of taking place. We'll do it sort of in this region. That's looking pretty cool. So the character goes, take this. He does a bit of a punch, and that's looking pretty cool to me. So let's see what happens. He goes up to the enemy. Yeah, he punches him. So as you can see, he just did 20 damage there. Watch the health. Goosh. So he just punched him. It's actually quite satisfying. And then, of course, once it has been sort of reset, we want to be able to basically have like a loop. So the enemy will punch so long as the old chap is close by. So what we're going to do for that, here, is the following. We're going to move this stuff down. Then we're going to go into logic and processing, the yellow one, and we're going to grab ourselves, oh sorry, not logic and processing, we're actually going to go to sensors and input. Then we're going to grab ourselves a signal generator. There's probably a better way to do this, and I'm probably dumb, but for now we're just going to do this. So we're going to power the signal generator. And basically what happens is it'll just keep giving a constant signal. And as it gives a constant signal, because you're inside the trigger zone, you're going to keep punching until the chap actually loses their HP. So there they go, they're losing HP there, they're losing it there. And if we sort of just keep this on a pin to screen moment, you'll see we're in the zone and the signal generator just keeps producing a signal. So this way we can do like a nice loop, and they're going to keep punching until the player is dead, which is lovely. I mean, it's horrible, but in terms of game design, it's great. Now, what we are going to do next is, I think what we'll do is we'll also make it so that the enemy will stop moving while they punch. So we're going to put in a keyframe, and we're going to go to our little puppet over here. We're going to go L1 and square, and we're going to say your run speed and walk speed is reduced to 0 when you're doing that punch. So we're going to say the run and walk speed is reduced to 0. Actually, friends, we're not going to do that. Forget I said that entirely. I'm silly. Because this guy isn't moving with his walk speed, he's moving with the follower. Rookie error. So we're going to say no follower, no follow. So for the time that he is punching, he's not going to be moving. So now, because let's check it out in person. Yeah, he attacks me. Ow. How dare you. He's running after me. He's running after me. He goes for a punch. He has to stand still while he punches. And this guy is tenacious, man. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Here. Am I alive? Ooh. Okay, sweet. So that's cool. What I might do is, and this is a bit of a risky maneuver, I might increase the min distance ever so slightly, because he was a little bit like on my tail there. but I'm going to also increase the player sort of the hit zone a little bit. So now as he comes to me, and he punches me, stay away from me, you vagabond. Oh goodness, look at this guy. He's gliding on air. If I do a bit of a jump, he sort of comes after me. Okay, sweet. So yeah, he does do a bit of a jump there, which is a bit funky. But no worries for now. What we can do with that is maybe just reduce the strength and increase the damping, so that if he chases after me, oh, maybe too much damping. Okay, we don't want to have too much damping, otherwise the character is hardly going to be moving at all. We'll reduce them both so that they're both a little bit lower. Oi, oi, he's going after me. If I jump, okay, cool. So now he's not doing the weird float thing, but he's moving a little bit slow, if you ask me. So this is the stage where we sort of tweak it, and let's just give it a bit of a try. Okay, friends. So to prevent our little enemy from gliding is we're going to have our speed at 3.5, strength at 100%, but we're actually going to say overall damping 0%. What does damping actually do, friends? Damping makes it so that when your character here moves on the X, Y, or Z axis, it sort of slows their descent. So, for example, if they jump in the air like they did, they're going to be floating. But now, yeah, the guy's coming for me. Yeah, and even if I do a jump, he's not going to do that weird sort of floaty thing. Yeah. So he's just going to come at me and take some swipes at me. Dang, this is hectic. Wah! Run away, run away. So you're really getting the sense of being pursued by an enemy here, friends. So now, friends, what we're going to do is actually connect this to the detection logic. So the old pursue plus attack logic is only going to be activated, of course, when we've sort of triggered the alert phase. So the alert phase at the moment is it is connected to the C port. So the C port is going to power pursue and attack. You could even put the pursue and attack microchip in there if you wanted, but we'll keep them separate for now. So they're going to do their sort of patrol, carry on and so on and so forth. I can run past them. They're confused. They look around. Ah, they see me. And now they're going to start attacking me immediately. Yeah, they've been alerted. And they're going to keep attacking me until I am taken out. So of course I haven't sort of lined up any health bars or anything like that, but it's pretty much as simple as that, friends. So the C port is our, the C output is our sort of alert phase, and when they're in their alert phase, they're going to trigger the pursuit and the attacking as we have over here. Part 4 is going to be going over the sort of death logic and also the injury logic. So for example, when an enemy gets hit and when they die, they'll sort of drop an item and there'll be sort of various animations involved. I've just quickly gone to our player and added some attack animations. Yeah! So the player can now deal some damage. And so basically at the moment what happens is I can go up to my enemy and I can go, yeah, take this, take this, take this. And take 2 hits and they're sort of down. But at the moment they kind of just will like respawn into the game and there's not really anything going on. Which is fine, but it's not the coolest thing ever. So what we're going to do is go into animate, grab ourselves a timeline, and this is going to be their sort of injury timeline when they take a hit. So what's going to happen is they're going to sort of do a bit of like a oof. You can sort of have fun with this, you know. So it's generally kind of shortish. I mean, it depends on you, you know. You could have them getting knocked down and... So this is what happens when they take damage. It's pretty much just an animation, and we're also going to add in a keyframe that prevents them from doing all of their things. So they're not going to be able to sort of... they're not going to be able to detect you. Wait, is that true? Yeah, I think they can't detect you, and they won't patrol either. So for the duration of the beatdown, they won't be able to move or attack you because they're currently getting shreked. So that might be too blanket of a sort of keyframe, too many things that we're blocking at once. We're just going to say no attack or patrol, no attack or patrol. But we'll sort of experiment with that to see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my dude. Oh wait, sorry, I haven't actually connected it to anything. So how do we make it work? How do we make it so that when our character gets hit? Well, you can add sort of tags to your attacks and that sort of a thing. That's so, for example, if you had different kinds of attacks, if you had like a light attack and a heavy attack, and say when you do a light attack, the character just does their sort of like oof, they just do a sort of the small thing. And then if there was a heavy attack, they'd get knocked to the ground, for example. Then you could use a tag and put a tag in here, and then sort of detect with a trigger zone. If you detect a particular tag, then they'll sort of fall over, do their various animations. But we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to say when you're currently losing health, it's going to play this once. We might need to add a counter for that in order for it to sort of play more than once, actually. I'll give a quick try, but I mean at the moment, let's just try. So it goes, so you see? Okay, it looks like, that looks pretty cool. I sort of missed gish. So the sort of trigger zone for the attack is a little bit jank. There's a little bit of jankiness there. It can probably be improved a bit. I'll make it a little bit larger, just so that it's a little bit more sort of forgiving. So it does seem to work. I'm just going to also reduce the amount of damage that we do to see if we can do it more than once. So I'm just going to say -30. So when your enemy is being attacked, they will be interrupted. Yeah. Take this. Okay. Huh? So he turns around. He spots me. I attack him. I attack him. I attack him. Goosh. So you see, you can sort of. Goosh. It looks like there is a bit of jankiness because I'm cancelling out the detection sort of in its entirety. It looks like the character is sort of, when they sort of hearing you and seeing you, it kind of like overlaps. So what we might want to do is put in a node and make it so that this node is connected. So basically, by default, we've got detection and the output C directly connecting to the pursuit attack. What we're going to do is basically add a node in between. So now we can delete this. Cha-chang! So that's deleted. And now what this keyframe is going to do is no attack or patrol. Instead of disabling the whole detection microchip, it's just going to disable this. So it's basically the character can't attack when they are, or patrol when they are being attacked, but the detection logic won't be interrupted. So that way you won't have them sort of hearing you / being surprised multiple times. Gish, gish. They'll just sort of have their gish, gish, gish. So you see there, they get surprised by me and they get alerted, but it doesn't sort of cancel it and make it sort of restart a bunch of times. Goosh. Also, I think, so as you can see there, he was sort of confused and I was beating him down and so on and so forth, but the animation sort of didn't stop. We might want to do something where if you're currently losing health, it'll take you immediately to the alert phase. That depends on the kind of game you want, because that can be frustrating if you're going with like a stealth build or whatever, and you attack someone and they just like immediately see you. But so for example, if I do this, he hasn't seen me, I attack him, and he'll immediately start, whoops. Sorry. If I sort of attack him, he'll immediately. Damn, this guy spotted me too quickly. Okay, this is the way. So you see, as I attacked him, he didn't like sort of go into the alert phase. He didn't sort of turn around and look and so on and so forth. Another way you could do this is to connect it to output B, which takes you straight to the alert sort of phase. So we're going to do this. So as soon as you punch him, he's alerted, if that makes sense. Oh wait, actually no, that's not the best, because then every time you punch him, he's going to be alerted. Okay, friends, well this is why we experiment. So we won't do that. We'll say, oopsie, we'll say when you attack him, he'll just go straight to C and he'll start attacking you. Yeah. So as you can see, before he even sort of spotted me, now he's going to chase after me. Yeah, get out of here. Whoa. So that's looking pretty cool, friends. Now I've been messing around with that for a while. The next thing we're going to show you is a death animation. So this is when you have no health left. At the moment when you have no health, as you can see, it's going to say die. And then I think it's like when you die you will respawn. I think there's a respawn thing. Yeah, if the character is dead, you can see here there's the respawn. So we'll delete the respawn connection there. Next up, what we're going to do is add in a little bit of a death animation. It's not going to be too fancy, they're just going to sort of fall over. We'll just start with the default keyframe, put in a fresh one, and yeah, you can just go like, bleh. Let's see, they just sort of go like, have some fun with it. You can make it nice and dramatic, or you can keep it simple. You can, like, the simplest way to do a sort of death animation is also just to have like the enemy explode, depending on the vibe of the game you're going for. But you can also just have a nice sort of, bleh, they just sort of fall over. Okay, sweet. Bear with me as I animate this, friends. You can of course do all your own animations and have lots of fun with all these things. So this is what happens when we take an enemy out. They'll sort of get knocked they'll get knocked down. So they'll be like, huh! So we've just taken them out. They'll chill there for a few seconds and then they will disappear. I have a destroyer linked to them. You might want to also link the destroyer not only to that chap, but to this whole group, which is the sort of, let's see, wait, can you connect stuff to the entire group? Well, you want to basically destroy not just this guy, but also his little patrol points. So you can potentially, I think you'd have to do it to each individual object. Is that correct? Well, for now, let's just make sure that our character disappears. So if that goes, oh, you also want to stop, as we've done before. We want to have a keyframe that prevents us from attacking and patrolling. Because once our character is down, this is their sort of death animation. We don't want other things to happen, so they go, they fall over and they disappear. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. We do want to make it so that everything disappears, though. So we can make it, for example, that there is a destroyer on top of this whole group. So you just go L1 and X on the whole group. Woohoo! And then you can make it so that when this timeline is finished, it will destroy this whole group. So it powers that destroyer, which is looking cool. So when you have no health, it will power this timeline, which will be set to playback mode once. And then the character will sort of do their death animation, cha, cha, cha. And there you go, friends. The character has disappeared and so has their patrol points. You want to make sure that everything disappears, otherwise you might have bits of logic left over that hasn't been destroyed. But that's pretty much all there is to it, friends. So they're here and you're going, okay, sweet, bonk, 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 and they're down. And they'll sort of disappear. Okay, it looked like, for a split moment there, that the character was actually still following me. So let's just do a quick test. They're like the look at rotator was still working. So we must make sure we turn off the detection logic too. Because look, if I turn, yeah, they follow me. So what we'll do is we'll go to our timeline on no attack or patrol, and we can actually just deactivate the entire detection node. We don't have to animate that as well. Just turn off detection. Of course, patrol is also turned off. So now there shouldn't be any nonsense that we have to worry about. So here we go, here we go. We take them out. Here, here. They go down. If we move, they're stuck. And then they go. Sweet, friends. Now, if you want to create a, like, a currency or experience drop or whatever it might be, that's super easy peasy, friends. Like a pickup item, for example. So, you could do something like it increases your experience, for example. So we can create like a little experience orb. Oh, and I'll just, you know, I'll just create a little orb there. I'll make the brightness max, sort of like a little bit of experience there. Shwang. And then for this experience orb, I'm just going to attach a microchip, and that's looking cool. Now, inside your character, or probably better yet, outside of your character in like a separate chip, you're going to put like a variable which will be like your experience, your currency, all that sort of stuff. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into sculpt mode, and you're going to create yourself what I like to call a pink box, which is a piece of logic that is separate from all the characters in the scene, so that if any of them ever sort of die or get deleted or whatever, you don't have to worry about the variables resetting. So you create your pink box. You will turn off the grid snap. You will go to your logic and processing. Get yourself a microchip. I am working very fast, friends, so apologies if I'm a little bit speedy. But we go microchip. Then we're going to grab some variables. So I'm going to go variable. And then I'm going to go minimum value is 0. Maximum value can be 1,000. That's cool. And we can call this experience, for example. EXP or just XP. And so that's going to start at 0. When you collect this little golden orb, which is like an experience orb, what you're going to have in the little orb is, it's going to go into sensors and input and get a trigger zone. It's going to detect player. So we go things to detect tag, and we'll go player. And then once it detects player, it's going to do a little keyframe. A little timeline. That's going to go like this. It'll basically, like, when you pick it up, it'll like explode. So you can do just a little explosion animation. What you can do for that is go search, and then go search for, and then go fireworks. Fireworks. Okay, sweet. This is the little like media molecule fireworks thing. Then I'm going to change it so it's the same color as my experience orb, so it's a nice yellow. Cool. And then I'm going to make it so that, cool, when you pick up this experience orb, it's going to emit these fireworks at 0 speed. So it's going to emit the fireworks. There we go. It's going to be sort of, we line up the fireworks with the orb itself. So when you get it, it sort of explodes by where the orb was. Emit mode is once. Emitted object lifetime is, let's say, 2 seconds. The emitted object lifetime is just how long the fireworks are there. So they can be there for 2 seconds. So when you pick it up, you'll get like a nice explosion. And you'll also want to, for example, increase your experience. So you'll go to logic and processing and grab yourself a variable modifier. You can put it in over here. And the variable modifier, you can make it super short. Doesn't make a difference. You're going to go to name of variable, exp. You're going to say add, update type when powered on. Scope, you can just put it everywhere. And you're going to say operation value, let's say 25. So when you defeat this enemy and they sort of drop their little experience orb, it's going to give you 25 experience. And then it's also going to make our little golden thing over here. It's actually going to make it invisible. because it's going to look like you've collected it, so it looks like it disappears. We're going to make it invisible for just a short while. We can call this invis. And we're also going to make it so that the old experience orb disappears as well. So what's going on? We're emitting a firework, we're increasing the experience variable, we're making it invisible, and we're also destroying it after a short while. The reason why we destroy it just after a short while is so that all the logic can work before it sort of disappears. We're going to make it non-collidable as well, the sculpture, just so that our character doesn't sort of run into it while it's invisible. The trigger zone for the player detection, we can make it a bit smaller so your character actually has to like run into it in order to actually collect the orb. Sorry, my cat wants to get out. And once you have done that, it looks like we're pretty much waxed. Of course, what we're going to do now is make it so that when our character dies, they will emit the experience orb, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go to our death animation. Let's quickly name this. Just say death. And it's going to emit, so right here, move as an output, emitter. When the character goes down, not as they sort of fall, but once they've sort of landed, it's going to emit at 0 speed our little experience orb. And it's going to do it sort of above them. So if their body is here, it'll emit the experience orb sort of like above their body like that. The emitted object lifetime is infinite. The emit mode is once. Okay, sweet. So now the character's going to die. They're going to drop some experience orb, and then they're going to increase our experience. We'll create a little bit of a displayer to show our experience by grabbing a number displayer from moves and output. And we'll just quickly connect it here. So at the moment it's at 0. If we attack our player, here, our enemy, here, take this, he goes down, he dies, he leaves an experience orb behind. If I grab it, there's a nice little explosion, and I get 25 experience. It still seems to be there though. Did he emit 2 by accident? Emit mode was once. Interesting. It seems like there was almost 2 there. How strange. Let me try that again. I'm not sure why it didn't. Yeah. Okay, we attack. He falls. He drops the experience orb. I grab it, and there's another one. And there's another one. What's happening? That is so weird. Okay, I'll tell you what. Because because I've moved, right? I'm no longer in this trigger zone, probably. So you must go playback mode and set that to once. Because basically what was happening was, it was playing the beginning part of that timeline, but because I moved out of it, it was no longer powered. So you must set playback mode to once. That's why it seemed like there was multiple. It was actually just one little experience orb that wasn't completing its animation. Its whole timeline, rather. It falls, it drops the experience orb, and I get my experience. Lovely stuff. You can, and this system is pretty much all we use for, I'm just turning off preview invisibility. I turned that on, I turned preview invisibility off so that we could look at our microchip for our little experience orb. I'm going to quickly rename that quickly. EXP orb. EXP orb. Now you can turn it off so that firework isn't melting your eyeballs. But yeah, friends, so this experience variable, you can use it with anything. You can use it with like money, you can do it with, I don't know, energy, you can do it with whatever. All those various things. You can also do things like health potions. So if your enemy dropped like this could also work for ammo, those sorts of things. Like if your enemy dropped ammo, you basically just have a variable, and then inside your little experience orb, your little droppable item, it will give your character like a bunch of options. Now I'm going to quickly show you, like, the last thing is how to create a number of like random drops. So basically whenever you defeat an enemy, they'll drop something different each time. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to copy this orb Oh, sorry, I'm going to copy the whole orb, not just the thing. And I'm going to be like, okay, cool, that orb was yellow, or this one is going to be like red or something. And we'll be like, okay, cool, so now this one gives slightly more experience, and not only that, the size of the orb is going to be slightly bigger, you know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. It's like sweet. So there's a big orb, and there can be like, you know, a blue orb, or there can be whatever. I'm going to create this one, which will be like a blue orb, and it'll be like funky. There'll be like sort of layers to it. And I'm just having fun now. You got a nice satin sort of vibe going on. Satin's blue, right? Well, you know what I mean. Okay, sweet. So this one's like a super experienced thing. We make that just like evens larger. Just make sure if you make the whole thing larger that the size of the trigger zone will also get a little bit larger. So you might just like, for example, if you check here, you can see that the trigger zones are slightly different size. Because if you increase the size of the whole thing, including the microchip, it'll increase the size of all the things inside as well. So for this one, we'll just make the trigger zone slightly smaller. That looks cool. And we'll be like, cool, so for the small one, it gives us 25 experience. For the red one, it gives us like 50 experience. And for the blue one, it gives us flippin' 100. So like depending on the enemy, like you can drop different kinds of experience, or like different amounts of gold, you know, all of these things can stand in for each other. So how you have a random drop is, instead of just having an emitter, you're going to copy this emitter, and each emitter is going to emit something different. So the first one does the little gold orb, the second one does the little ruby orb, and the third one does the nice Saturn, if I'm getting that wrong I'll sound like an idiot, but the nice blue planet orb. And we're going to be like, okay, cool, 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 but of course we don't want to do all three at once, so what we're going to do is put down a microchip, and inside this microchip we're going to have all three of our emitters. We're just going to copy them in, and then we're going to grab ourselves a randomizer. This is in logic and processing on the furthest left. It looks like the little dice. You're going to say, okay, cool, when this is triggered it is going to power A, B, or C. So that's what happens when it's powered. And this is going to be, we can have it on true random. It doesn't really matter because it's not going to repeat or anything like that. And this is going to be random drop. Okay, sweet. So that's going to be powered after the character sort of falls over. And so when we kill the character, each time they're going to drop something different. I'm just going to move the pink box out of the way. You can also make the pink box invisible and non-collidable. Okay, sweet. So the way I'm going to test this out is to have multiple enemies. Sorry, let's just put on a grid snap quick. I'm going to have multiple enemies that each have their own sort of route that they are routing. Their own patrol that they are patrolling. So we've got multiple chaps all going for their thing. I'm going to take on this guy. Hey, get out of here. Ish, ish, ish. Take this. And he goes down. He drops some gold experience. I get some gold experience. Now I'm going to take on these idiots. Yeah, come on. Have at you, my bro. Take this. Hiya. So he goes down. He drops some gold experience too. This guy goes down. I bet you he's going to drop gold experience and it's going to look like my logic doesn't work. He goes down. And he drops some blue experience. Pachang! There we go. So as you can see, different enemies drop a different thing. So that's like a random loot drop, which is pretty cool. All you have to have is all the various items that you want to emit, like drop on death, and you just add a randomizer. And it's as easy as that, folks. Okay, sweet. Friends, our video is not over yet, because people also voted for the ability to have the must have been the wind feature, which is basically when they look and they don't see anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our character. I'm going to do a little bit of voice acting. If you don't care about this step, you can totally skip it. It's pretty chill. I'm basically just going to add voice acting. So when the character is cautioned, you want to do like a sort of sound. So I'm just going to do a little bit of voice acting over here. I'm going to go into sound mode, tools, get us a nice sound recorder. Huh? So that's looking pretty cool. Let's do a test. Huh? So they just do a nice little question mark there. I'm going to do some other ones. What was that? So that looks pretty cool. If we play, what was that? We can actually just put it in our, whoopsie, what happened there? Ah, I see. Well, actually, let me just record a few various sound effects. Huh? I'm just creating like various silly, what? So that's looking cool. Now I'm going to go into sound. I'm going to go in, oh no, sorry, L1 and X, and then I'm going to go into slice map viewer. And now all those various sound effects I did, I can add into my sound. Whoops. So now it'll randomly play these various sounds that I've recorded. So it's going to go like, huh? What? Huh? Huh? So as you can see, every time it plays, it's a little bit sort of, it's random every time. What was that? Huh? What was that? Huh? Huh? Okay, cool. That's looking perfect. Now I'm gonna have a must have been the wind. So now he's gonna, basically what happens is, what was that? He looks around, he looks around. Must have been the wind. We can basically do this. So what happens is he does his spin, he spins back, and then he says, must have been the wind. And then he continues with his patrol. So when this ends, the patrol continues. I'm gonna add in some other ones. Must have been nothing. Okay, cool. Sorry, and the way that we add them into sort of one audio file, audio gadget, is we go slice map viewer over here, and we just drag it in. Okay, sweet. So that is that. Now for alert enemy. Now we don't have to have one for that. I'm just making this one. You guys see how it works. Now let's test it out. What was that? Nah, it's true. It's true, man. We've got to add in the alert sound as well. So let's do some like stupid voice acting. My favorite thing. That was actually my dream job at one point. Shout out to any voice acting people out there. If you need a voice actor, let me know. I enjoy voice acting. Anyway, next up we've got our alert animation. So we're just going to do a bit of that. Modes, sound gadget, tools, sound recorder. And we're going to say, huh? Enemy! Who are you? Just basically stupid sounds. Okay. Slice map viewer. Drag them all in. And this is great because it's basically a built-in randomizer. So now when he's surprised, he's gonna go. We can drag this a little bit longer. I was gonna say, who are you? We can make it a little bit shorter so it starts sooner. Enemy. Who are you? So they just sort of do that sort of business. So we're basically just adding a little bit of spice to our characters so that they're sort of complete. Oof. This is what happens when they get hit. I did start a little bit late there, so I'm just gonna go. Oof. That's cool. Drag that in. Huh. And pretty much, friends, you get the picture. You pretty much get the picture now, I'm sure. So this is how you do it. You add a little bit of audio spiciness. A lot of people voted for this, so I've got to add it in. Huh. Oof. Huh. Oof. So I think I'm going to go into this. If you find that one of them starts a bit late, you just go L1 and square on the inside when you're in the slice mapper. And you can move the slice start, so that it starts a bit sooner. So now it'll go, oof, And then, of course, we've got to do the death sound as well. And of course, I never saw France. And that is looking pretty cool. So now we're going to go on an X, slice mapper, throw them all in. I'm going to go, when they die, they're going to go, I never saw France. So that's looking pretty cool. And that's pretty much all there is to it, friends. Now I've got a pretty well-rounded character. Huh?
Who are you?
Yeah, now he starts attacking me. But I'm gonna beat it up.
Oof.
Also, friends, you might have seen at one point the characters were sort of, there was a question mark and an exclamation at the same time. It could be that when we added in the sounds, yes, look, the no caution and the no patrol keyframes didn't end up covering the whole timeline. So just go to these things and make sure that they do cover the whole timeline. Okay, sweet. Because it was basically just like the adding in the sounds made it slightly longer. So he goes down. Okay, sweet. That was just that one moment where you could see the exclamation and the question mark at the same time was just because that timeline was no longer long enough. So you just make it a bit longer and it's all good. Alrighty, friends, so that's looking pretty cool. I think I'm going to go over things from the top. So first we started off with our patrol logic. With our patrol logic, we have to have a collection of our patrol points, which consists of just a block and a tag. We can of course make these invisible so you can't sort of see them. So you can just go select them all, L1 and square, and make them invisible. So when you're in the actual game, you can't see the character patrolling. They just sort of keep moving and they'll go for their various points, and once they get to them, they'll start to move. They'll of course engage us and all these sorts of things. Next up, we have, so that's the patrol logic. How does it work, friends? We have our tags. We also have our patrol logic that isn't in the player's actual microchip, but rather it is sort of in a layer between. So we went into our character, cool, we made a microchip, and then we pressed L1 and square and attached it so that it's part of the group that includes the player and the patrol points. If you just attach the patrol logic inside the character's microchip, as we explained earlier, you won't be able to use the scoping feature, and if you have multiple enemies, for example, then they're going to overlap with each other's patrols and it's going to be a bit funky. If you only have one patrolling character, then you can just put it in and it's fine. But if you want to have multiple, this is the way to go. What does the patrol consist of? The patrol consists of some trigger zones and some followers, as well as a rocket rotator. So when you start off, you're following point A. When you get to point A, you'll go to point B. When you get to point B, you'll go to C, and so on and so forth. The rocket rotator just makes sure that you are looking in the direction you are moving. Next, we moved on to detection logic. And what's cool about, I actually see this node here is just, I'm just going to say no port so we don't have anything moving out there. So the detection logic includes a, first up we have the laser scope, which is powered by the A port. The laser scope is looking for the friend tag. When it sees the friend tag, it's going to trigger the alert animation.
Enemy!
Once the alert enemy... Sorry, I just found that a bit funny. Once the alert animation has sort of played, it's going to take us to port C. Port C is our alert phase. When the enemy is alerted, they're going to be looking at the player. They're not going to patrol, and they're not going to be cautioned. So what is caution, you might ask? Caution is basically the ability to, when the enemy has heard the player but hasn't sighted them yet, they're going to be in the caution stage. The caution is just connected to a simple counter. Caution makes them go like this. They sort of make a sound, they're confused, there's a question mark, they turn around, they pause, they turn around again, and then they'll say, must have been nothing, or whatever. So that is the caution phase, as we shall demonstrate now. So they're going to go, wow, run past them.
Must have been the wind.
And then and then they continue with their route. They continue with their route. Sorry, this is so dumb. I love it. So what does this consist of? Yeah, a keyframe, which is the no patrol. This is just the animation keyframes. We've got a text displayer, we've got some sounds, and we've got some rotators. Make sure with the rotators that you point them upwards. If you don't do that, the character won't turn properly. Then what do we have? We have our pursue and attack logic, which everyone was super keen on. Like 40+% voted for this section, and it's actually probably one of the easiest. You have a follower that will follow the player. It's important that you set the minimum distance so that the enemy doesn't sort of clip into the player. You can set the minimum distance to something like 1 meter, depending on the size of your characters. Don't make the speed too high, but make strength 100% and damping 0%. If you have damping at a higher percent, the character might do the little float thing, so keep it at 0. You're going to have a trigger zone that detects player. And this is not the like finding player thing. This is basically the range that you can do your attack. So when your player is in attack range, I might rename this trigger zone to attack range. When the player is in attack range, then what's happening is it's going to trigger a signal generator. Well, basically it's going to trigger your attack animation, as we see over here. Now what the signal generator and counter do is they make it so that the counter makes it so that you will complete the punch, and when you finish it resets the count, and the signal generator makes it so that while you're in the attack range it's going to keep generating a signal, so you'll punch more than once. Because if you're in the attack zone, they'll just do one punch and then it'll be stopped. But with the signal generator, that means that the enemy can keep attacking if the player is within range. Next up, we have our sort of hurt animation. So I'm just going to rename that hurt. And in our hurt animation, of course, we've just got the keyframes, which are the animation. We've got the no attack or patrol. We disable this node that will activate the pursue and attack. And of course, we also deactivate the patrol with this thing, so the character doesn't run around while they're getting beaten up. And then we've just got a sound effect for the added vibes. My cat wants to come in again. Then we've got the death timeline, and the way that the death timeline works is that sorry, I was just one-handed for a second there. We have the keyframes, which are just the animation up top. They fall over. They will not attack or patrol, same situation as before. They will have a random drop of items, which is just a randomizer connected to 3 emitters. These emitters are connected to these sort of experience orbs, which consist of a trigger zone to detect the player and a timeline that says, okay, it's going to emit just a fancy explosion. It's going to increase our particular value. This can be experience, this can be money, this can be ammo, it can be whatever. It's going to make it invisible, and then it's going to destroy it, which is looking pretty cool. Then what is next is it will then destroy the player character itself. Not the player character, but the enemy. And when this video ends, it's going to destroy the whole group, which includes not only the player, but also these patrol points over here. Following that, friends, yeah, I've explained the experience orb. We've got over here our pink box that has our variables. You can add all your variables in this. You add it separately from your characters so that if either of them die, it doesn't sort of reset. And then in our player character over here, all we have is a attack animation that deals damage. We have a player tag, which is of course important for the hearing and the sight. Well, not so much the sight, but the hearing and the sort of looking at rotators. Then we have noise, which is triggered by player movement. And friends, that is it in a nutshell. You can now sneak past your enemies.
Must have been the wind.
You can now attack them.
What was that?
Hiya!
Oof.
You can grab their experience. You can accidentally get spotted by them. And then they'll start attacking you. You can now get wrecked. I haven't added in player animations because it's pretty much of a muchness. Once you can do it for the enemy, you can also do it for your player. And friends, that's pretty much all there is to it. I believe I went over everything that was mentioned. There were a few other things that were mentioned, but I think this video is a little bit lengthy, and I'll just try to explain them in the comments if there's anything else you wanted me to add. But friends, thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback on the in the questions and in the comments. I always appreciate it, and I love it when you respond to the polls and all those things, because I can get an idea of what everyone's keen on. I hope you find this video useful. I feel like it has a lot of potential for enemies in games. These sort of systems I've used in my own games. and that I've been working on sort of in the background and so on and so forth. And yeah, I just find it pretty useful. I hope you find it useful too, friends. Let me know if you did find it useful. If you want to like add a few extra bells and whistles or some tweaks to it, what you're sort of interested in, just let me know, friends. And so, without further ado,
Must have been the wind.
catch you on the flip flop.